My wife, whom I have been married to for 10 years, suddenly had tears in her eyes. After being missing for several days, the usually weak girl suddenly drove her car off a cliff. At the funeral, David attended in a black suit, looking more like a husband than I did. He said arrogantly, "You are just my substitute." I said I disliked you, and Sophia was willing to die for me. You stole my heroine before the plot even started. Now that time has been reversed, Sophia will definitely be mine. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Sophia, who had accepted the $5 million in humiliation. I quickly pulled the check back from her hand. The story is about to begin. If you like it, remember to like and subscribe. When Sophia fell off a cliff and committed suicide, I was at home celebrating Emily's 7th birthday. Last month, after attending her daughter's parent-teacher conference, Sophia cried in her study and then disappeared. The police and I had been searching for her until the media exposed her self-filmed video of falling off a cliff. In the video, Sophia smiled and looked towards the bottom of the cliff, and said with determination and firmness, "David, this time I will find you cleanly, and no one can stand between us." I watched in a daze as she jumped off the cliff without hesitation. I only had time to cover my daughter's eyes. My heart felt like it was thrown into a furnace and was being roasted, sizzling with pain. At the funeral, reporters chattered non-stop. "Mr. James, is David in your wife's suicide video calling you? Miss Sophia mentioned cleanliness. Is it because you verbally abused her? Is there a third person between you and Miss Sophia?" I pinched my palms and opened my mouth but didn't know what to say. Sophia and I have been together for almost 20 years and married for 10 years, but we rarely talk to each other, and even our daughter was born unexpectedly. Because I begged her to give birth to a daughter, she became even colder to me. Is the strong affection in the video really for me? Mark comforted me. Sophia's father was a domestic abuser and gambler and was jailed. She must feel that she is not worthy of you and has been suppressing her feelings. David suddenly appeared in solemn attire, with red eyes and haggard face. He looked more like Sophia's husband than I did. Reporters smelled gossip and immediately swarmed around him. He glanced at me obscurely, a hint of provocation flashed through his eyes, and then he choked up and revealed his identity to the reporters. "The David that Sophia was talking about is me. She originally wanted to divorce, and I didn't want to bring bad reputation to her because of me. I didn't expect that she would do such a stupid thing, and even said that she would be with me in the next life." After saying that, she ignored the reporters and walked towards me crying. Amid the flashing lights of the reporters, David patted my shoulder pretentiously and whispered in my ear, "Who told you to steal my heroine before the plot even started? She just treated you as my stand-in. I despise her for being unclean, but Sophia is willing to die for me." My heart sank and I raised my hand to punch him. David turned his head sideways after being hit by me, and I saw him clenching his teeth. In front of the reporters, he could only endure the pain on his face. "If you do it again, you won't even have the chance to date her." I didn't understand what he was saying. Sophia and I had been together since high school, and we had never been together before. "You said I was a stand-in, so were you with her in your dreams?" David raised his head high, looked down at me, and said sarcastically, "You guessed right, it was in a dream." He threw me an old diary and left in a cool manner. The diary was written in Sophia's handwriting when she was young, indicating that the diary was very old. The first line of the title page expressed her overwhelming longing. "David, where are you?" I read Sophia's diary almost in a self-torturing manner. It is almost a collection of Sophia's love letters to David. She had often seen David in her dreams since she was very young. Sophia didn't know his name, and even his appearance was very vague. She only knew the pronunciation of David. Although this David had never appeared, Sophia had always been deeply in love with him. In her dreams and in her diary, she gave him all her grievances and preferences. She believed that they would meet one day. My appearance was just a substitute for Sophia's thirst. She couldn't bear it any longer, and she thought David would only appear in her dreams, so she chose to marry me as a second choice. I remember when Sophia proposed to me, I asked her why she wanted to marry me. Sophia's fingertips touched the end of my eyebrow, and her eyes were filled with love. "You look like my dream lover." I thought she was just saying something sweet. My stomach spasmed uncontrollably, and even my soul wanted to vomit out the past 10 years of knowing Sophia. As expected, people don't rot suddenly, it's just their nature. When she met David at her daughter's parent-teacher conference, Sophia probably had the same thoughts as me. She wrote in sloppy handwriting, with great reluctance and pain, "I wish we were not born at the same time, so that we could be together every day." She resented the trick of heaven that made her meet true love so late, and she resented even more that she and David had both started families. So in her last words, she said that she was not clean. It turned out that marrying me had become a stain on Sophia's life. At the end of the diary, Sophia wrote, if she could go back to the past, David would not mind her being dirty. Even if David didn't remember her, she would definitely find David as soon as possible. David also said that day that he wanted to do it again, and I always had a feeling that something was going to happen. And things soon happened as I expected. Sophia is the only female billionaire in the top 10 wealth list and has a great influence on the internet. After being hyped by reporters, this matter became a hot topic among the people. What's more, a scanned version of her diary was released, and her secret love and deep affection for more than 20 years were all praised by fans. David was originally a minor star, and this time he became everyone's pitiful widow, with his fans soaring to tens of millions overnight. And I became the villain that everyone wanted to kill, the queen mother who separated the cowherd and the weaver girl. My spoof photos were everywhere on the internet. Mark stood up for me, it's all the fault of that scumbag and that bitch. If you like each other so much, don't get married. You are the victim, okay? Perhaps because I had nothing to be disappointed about, I felt surprisingly calm. Until Emily was kidnapped. David madly posted Emily's photo online, captioning, whenever I see her, I always remember Sophia lying coldly in the coffin. She said she didn't want to give birth to this child who represented betrayal. Some crazy fans seem to regard me as the third party in their relationship. In order to vent their anger on David, they tied Emily to the cliff where Sophia committed suicide. In the live broadcast room, Emily's shrill cries and the voices of fans scolding her fiercely intertwined. I sat in the car rushing to the cliff, staring at the dagger on Emily's neck on the screen with difficulty breathing. When I arrived at the scene, David sent me a text message, go well, the time reversal tool won't work unless you and that bastard die. I ignored his inexplicable words and was only focused on rescuing Emily. When the fans saw me, they became even more emotional. Those who destroy other people's relationships must go to hell. This child is proof of your infidelity. I will kill her first. Before I could pounce on her, the fan grabbed Emily's collar and lifted her over the edge of the cliff. Emily struggled in fear, and the fan suddenly let go. No! I wanted to hold Emily's hand, but I missed it in the end. The fan didn't seem to expect Emily to fall, and immediately ran out in fear. I grabbed her and kept pestering her. Sophia is the irresponsible and selfish person, why don't you take revenge on her? Emily is just a child. David is also a married man, he has his own wife and children. He instigated others to commit suicide and used fans as weapons. He has no moral bottom line, why don't you let him die? The live broadcast continued, and more people woke up. They began to apologize to me as if they had just woken up from a dream. David suddenly appeared and shut down the live broadcast. He looked at me and the fans fighting with a stern face and said, just because I am the male protagonist of this world, what I say is the truth, and everyone will like me. You are just a cannon fodder, and you dare to fall in love with the female protagonist before I awaken. You are the lover. If I didn't despise her uncleanness, why do you think I would go to so much trouble to ask the system for props to restart? My eyes were red with anger. Emily was only 7 years old, and she was thrown off a cliff just for a so-called prop. How scared must she be? While fighting with the fan, she stabbed a big hole in my abdomen. I pulled her away with all my strength, rushed to David, and shouted, I want you to be buried with Emily. I hugged David tightly and rushed off the cliff. David struggled hard in fear, but he couldn't separate from me. When he was about to land, I heard him screaming and asking the system to use the props quickly. The surroundings went dark for a moment, and before I could recover from the fall, I fell off the stool. The hard and cold touch of the floor brought me back to consciousness. I heard my father, who had long passed away, call me distressfully, you are even willing to kneel down to me for this person? I stood up from the ground in surprise, and in front of me was my father with a serious expression and Sophia with an embarrassed expression. This scene was when I asked my father to sponsor Sophia. I looked at Sophia's hand and saw a check for $5 million. She was holding it with her fingertips, as if it was a dirty thing. I immediately reached out and pulled it away. If you dislike it so much, then don't take it. Our family's money didn't come from the wind. Sophia blinked, as if she had just seen the scene clearly, then she stood up abruptly and ran out without saying a word. I remembered what David said and realized that Sophia had also returned to the present with her memories, so I ignored her. I took my father's hand and said seriously, Dad, let's go to the hospital right away. My father didn't understand what had just happened. He advised me with great sorrow, James, don't be deceived by her appearance. You two are really not suitable for each other. Don't be fooled by her. The old man looked worried, fearing that his stupid son, a landlord, would be cheated and have to pay money to others. I patted his hunched back and said, don't worry, your son wants to develop our own business now. Falling in love will only affect my admission to Peking University and Tsinghua University. My father was surprised at my sudden realization. I stopped him from preaching and dragged him to the hospital. My father passed away right after I graduated from college because he was diagnosed with stomach cancer too late and there was no cure. If the problem could be detected earlier, maybe it could be reduced to a minor issue and I could spend more time with my father. I used to admire Sophia's perseverance and thought she would achieve something if she had the chance. Although my father looked down on her, he didn't want to embarrass me. Sophia agreed to our marriage after she agreed to work in my company after graduation. When she was in high school, her father not only helped her deal with her gambling father, but also gave her $5 million to live on. In fact, I understand that my father gave Sophia so much money because he wanted her to study hard and not follow in her father's footsteps because of the hardship of life. Then I would have to deal with a lot of messes. It's a pity that Sophia didn't seem to want to be coerced by force. Although the $5 million was given away, her father felt even more unhappy. The doctor's examination results came out. It's chronic gastritis, and there are signs of worsening. It's not cancer, so just be careful and be careful. I immediately breathed a sigh of relief. If I could do it again, I might be able to salvage a lot of things. After the weekend, I returned to school for class, but no one was sitting in Sophia's seat. Sophia's family is very poor. She has always cared about her studies and has always arrived early and left late. It is really abnormal that she has not come yet at this time. Mark saw my gaze and explained, I heard that Sophia had dinner with a boy from class 3 over the weekend, and the two of them have a special relationship. That boy must be David. His ill will towards me was obvious before time went back, and with the gadget and system that can make time go back, I was worried that he would do something to me. Sophia didn't run into the classroom until the bell rang. The teacher frowned, but Sophia was the top student in the class after all, so she didn't say anything. Mark wanted to persuade me, and whispered, I would say Sophia is not worthy of your love. What else does she have besides good grades and decent looks? She eats and drinks your food and always looks arrogant. Now she even dares to hook up with other boys outside. It's been a while since I've seen Mark look so young. I smiled and turned his head to signal him to listen carefully and not talk. Sophia is not worth sacrificing my class time for. If I could do it again, I would take control of my life. If Sophia wants to chase the girl of her dreams, she should do it quickly and lock her up so that she doesn't come out to hurt other people. But Mark said Sophia ate my food and drank my drinks, and I almost forgot about it. When Sophia was in high school, her father never gave her living expenses, and it was only after the school applied for a scholarship that she was able to successfully attend high school. However, the scholarship was only enough to cover her tuition and basic living expenses. I saw that she only ate the free rice and soup every day, and I was worried that she was malnourished, so I took the initiative to top up her meal card with $100,000. My attitude was very tough, and Sophia couldn't refuse, so she just said that she would pay me back later. But until she jumped off the cliff, she didn't mention this matter. So if Mark hadn't mentioned it just now, I would have almost forgotten about it. After class, I went to the school's financial director and returned the money. My father was an investor in the school, and the financial director certainly knew me. It was he who approved my decision to give Sophia so much money. He also knew something about the relationship between Sophia and me. The financial director quickly returned the money to Sophia's card and said with some embarrassment, Mr. James, you previously topped up $100,000, but Sophia must have used a lot of it, and now there is not enough left. I nodded calmly, indicating that I understood, this money is just a lesson learned. In fact, I should have seen it at the beginning. If Sophia was really as self-reliant as I imagined, why would she use the money in my card? The school provides rice, a variety of vegetable soups, and a scholarship package every quarter. Not only will Sophia not starve to death, she even lives a pretty good life, but she just doesn't have the freedom that other students have. It's disgusting that she spends my money like a gift to me. Sophia came to see me during lunch break. She was much more beautiful than her peers, but unfortunately, she didn't look at me straight in the eye, and even her tone of voice seemed to be condescending. James, why did you transfer the money from the card? I rolled my eyes, it's my money, I can transfer it whenever I want. She didn't seem to notice that I was back, and still thought I was the James who could be happy for the whole day if she just looked at him for a second longer. She said unhappily, just because I didn't take the $5 million? James, not everyone can sell themselves out for money. It was wrong for your father to do that, and you shouldn't learn from him. My heart sank to the bottom of the valley in an instant. Sophia was really gifted in stabbing people in the heart. It turned out that the money that I begged her to accept in order to make her life more prosperous was actually a mockery and threat from her father in her eyes. She even dared to say bad things about her father to me. I held back my tears and looked at her steadily. My father is willing to give you money because he thinks you have good grades and you are worth investing in. But obviously, you are not worth it. And why should I go to such trouble to give money to an ungrateful person like you? She was choked by my words and looked at me in surprise, as if she couldn't believe that these words came out of my mouth. It's not my fault that you can't eat. Don't bite others if you don't have the ability. Get away from me. I need to study on my own. Mark also rolled his eyes, pushed her aside and sat next to me. He asked me excitedly, James, your dad actually invested $5 million in one person, what do you think of me? Sophia turned and left angrily, her tone seeming to be telling me not to regret it. I am more obedient and considerate than Sophia. Investing in me will definitely be a great profit. After saying that, he also made a gesture of a eunuch paying respects in a TV series. There was a loud bang in the sky, and this old servant made a brilliant appearance. What do you want, Your Highness? I was amused by him, and then I thought of Mark's ordinary family background. His parents were divorced and his stepmother was not kind to him. We met again after graduating from college, at my wedding with Sophia. At that time, his father kicked Mark out of the house for his young son. I kept Mark as an assistant, and his life became more stable. When I got home, I discussed investing in Mark with my father. He promised me everything as long as I stopped being obsessed with Sophia. I thought more about it. The $5 million was a separate grant for Mark. The next day, I took the extra $20 million to the principal and opened a James Family Scholarship. As long as the applicants passed the qualification review, had excellent grades, and were willing to work for the James family after graduation, the James family would fully support them to complete their studies. There were many successful people from poor families in our class, and I couldn't miss any of them. After the notice came out, I saw Sophia standing in front of the message board for a long time. I knew she must want the money, but she just said that money can't buy everything, so of course I can't give in to it. I felt relieved. It wasn't until David came over and called her that the two left together. David and I looked at each other inadvertently, and he looked at me with a distant look, as if he didn't remember me. This made me feel relieved. It seemed that the time reversal did not bring David back with him. He should be at the time when he said he had not yet awakened. I ordered a full set of 5 years of college entrance examination and 3 years of simulation and devoted myself to studying. That unknown system is always a threat, and I must make myself strong enough before David wakes up. Time passed very quickly when I was studying. I was focusing on Mark's grades all day and ignored everything else. I hadn't paid any attention to Sophia for a long time. It is said that she went back to her old life of eating rice with soup because she had no money. In order to buy a birthday present for David, she skipped evening self-study and worked part-time. Later, she was discovered by her gambling father. He went to the store where she worked to cause trouble, smashed a lot of other people's things, and was taken to the police station. During the break of the sports meeting, I went back to the classroom to get some water and saw her writing the test paper with a bandage on her head. She seemed to be having a hard time writing because she hadn't been in class for a long time. I have never felt so clearly that things have changed. Sophia still has the same face, but I no longer have that feeling of excitement. They both have 2 eyes and 1 nose, and the others have a conscience more than Sophia. How could I like such a person, and even be willing to compromise and give up all the shares of the company? Sophia's eyes immediately turned cold when she saw me coming. You want to laugh at me, are you satisfied? I tell you, no matter how much you target me, I will never give up David. People like you will never understand what true love is. It can make a person who has nothing pay with his life. I was so angry that I laughed. How dare such a selfish person like her talk about true love in front of me? It seems that Sophia is not only arrogant, but also ignorant. I sneered, Sophia, what's wrong with you? I didn't cause you to suffer like this. The reason you let others laugh at you is because you are a joke yourself. Sophia was hurt by my words and struggled to stand up, dragging her injured leg. I continued, also, this is a school, not a studio. If you want to act out a melodrama or idle drama to find your true love, please die far away if you want to die. Sophia's eyes trembled and instantly turned red as she said, can you say it wasn't you who spread the news about my part-time job? If it wasn't you, why would David hide from me? I didn't expect there would be such a pleasant surprise. It seems that your so-called true love is just your wishful thinking. I looked at Sophia with disdain and said, as for your part-time job, do you think the teacher is blind because you are not at evening self-study every day? The teacher doesn't know where you went, so of course she has to inform your parents. Does she want to take risks for someone like you? It's not as if you have considered the teacher. Sophia is on the verge of collapse. I'm worried that she might go crazy and hurt someone. After all, she could even abandon her own life. Her risk factor is extremely high. Okay, that's enough. I don't really want to talk to anyone who's not among the top 3 in the school. After saying that, he walked out of the classroom with the cup of water. When I reached the stairs, Sophia's crazy scream suddenly came from the classroom. Fortunately, I ran fast. My father hired several tutors from top universities to help me with my studies. In addition, I also had to help my father plan some projects in my spare time, which kept me very busy. At a business conference I hosted for my father, I actually saw David, holding the arm of a wealthy female businessman. The young man's tall figure stood out among the bosses with beer bellies, and his tight black suit was even more eye-catching. The significance of David's presence here is self-evident. Although I know David's vain character, it doesn't matter if he wants to sell himself out to get a higher position, but he must not do it in our James family's place. He seemed to think I looked familiar and wanted to come over to say hello. I frowned slightly, and the waiter beside me understood and went forward to chase him away. The wealthy woman asked the reason and slapped David in the face. "You bitch, you offended Mr. James and dared to follow him in. Why don't you kneel down and apologize to Mr. James?" I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I called a team of bodyguards and forcefully threw the boss out as well. David glared at me unconvincingly. "James, you dare to do this to me? Aren't you afraid that I will complain to Sophia? If you dare to bully me, Sophia will never forgive you in her life. You lick dog, don't ever think about being with her." I originally thought that David had not yet awakened and was just annoying, but I didn't expect that he actually knew about the relationship between Sophia and me. I just don't know if he heard it from someone else or if Sophia told him. Judging from his attitude, it's most likely Sophia. The thought of hearing my name from Sophia's mouth, mixed with some malicious assumptions, made me feel sick. Arguing with someone like David was even worse. I was about to have them thrown out when I caught a glimpse of a figure from the corner of my eye, raising his chin with interest. The waiter brought Sophia in from outside the banquet hall. David panicked immediately. Sophia looked at David with tears in her eyes, and said in agony, "So you are really here?" The female boss still had her arm around David's waist, and David was stiffly held in her arms. Sophia was shaking with anger, staring at David intently. The somewhat overweight female boss stood between the two of them, just like a scene of a rich man robbing a commoner's man. After waiting for a long time, Sophia didn't say a word. Boring, it's all for the so-called true love. Even if you catch someone cheating, you still have to hold back. I had enough of the drama and kicked everyone out. Without these mentally ill people, the investment promotion conference was a great success. Many CEOs added my contact information, obviously recognizing my identity as the successor of the James family. When leaving the hotel, Sophia and David were still arguing at the door. David crossed his arms in front of his chest, his eyes cold. "Sophia, are you going to blame me? I'm only doing this for my own future. You're so poor, and you have a gambling father, how could I abandon Mr. Robert to be with you?" Sophia looked at him in disbelief. "But you clearly said that I'm the one you love the most." David couldn't stand the coldness, and his tone became more and more impatient. "What are you talking about? How could I say such a thing to you? What I love most is obviously money. If it weren't for the fact that James was willing to spend money on you and you were not bad looking, do you think I would spend time with you?" He pointed at Sophia's clothes and said, "You have guts. You can refuse a check for $5 million. That's why you wear a thin shirt in -10 degrees. I'm not as stupid as you. Besides, any normal person would choose Mr. Robert." Mr. Robert's car drove out of the basement, and David immediately jumped in. Sophia stood there in a daze, tears falling drop by drop on the ground. I wanted to ignore her and leave, but Sophia suddenly called me. Her voice was hoarse and tired, and she was full of disappointment in me. "James, do you have to see me break up with David before you will stop?" I almost wanted someone to dig Sophia's brain open to see if it was filled with water. "Sophia, where do you get your confidence from? How could I, the heir of the James family, fall for someone like you? You are as stupid as a pig and don't blame others for your own mistakes." Sophia clenched her fists, and veins popped out on her forehead. The bodyguards immediately stood in front of me. Sophia's expression became paler and paler, and she finally smiled, but her expression was hideous, and she no longer looked pretty. She covered her face and squatted down, not saying a word. I ignored her. My time is much more valuable than hers. The bosses at the banquet just now all want privileges. There are constant messages and calls. The school is about to start the next assessment. This time, I will do my best within my ability and will never stop for anyone. After that day, Sophia disappeared for a week. The teacher explained that she had contracted pneumonia due to the cold and was receiving treatment in the hospital. She also launched a donation campaign in the class. However, because she was too aloof, she mocked the classmates who wanted to help her, so not many people donated to her. After I finished my exams, I didn't go back to school often. My father still had some hidden stomach problems, and the doctor recommended that he rest and recover. In order to make my father worry less, I helped him take over a lot of work, and it was not convenient for me to go to school to study. Apart from exams, I relied on tutoring and self-study, and fortunately my grades did not decline. I also found time to participate in a math competition and did quite well. My father's favorite thing to do when he has free time is to call his old friends and show off my abilities. He arranged several blind dates for me, and only stopped when I made it clear that I would not fall in love. The next time I heard about Sophia was on social news. Sophia's father lost all his money in gambling again. He heard that the head teacher had raised some medical expenses for her, so he started to have evil ideas. The two of them fought in the ward. When Sophia's father took the money and ran away, he slipped and fell down the stairs. Due to long-term bad living habits and the nervousness of hiding from debt, even though the doctors quickly sent her to the operating room, she still died. This incident quickly became popular online because of Sophia's outstanding appearance. Most people were happy that Sophia had gotten rid of such a father, and many people spontaneously donated money so that she could study in peace. David jumped out immediately and claimed the identity of Sophia's boyfriend. However, this time, the identity of Sophia's boyfriend was not as popular in the eyes of netizens as before, when Sophia committed suicide. It's considered premature love for a high school student to be in a relationship, right? Are Sophia's grades real? Her family is in such a difficult situation, and she still has the mood to date someone else. Isn't this another way to become an internet celebrity? Public opinion immediately turned to demanding Sophia come out to clarify her relationship with David, otherwise she would have to return the money David had collected. Of course, David would not admit that he accepted donations from netizens, so Sophia had no choice but to accept a live interview with an entertainment media. Student Sophia, there has been a lot of speculation online lately about whether your boyfriend is David. Can you respond to this question? Sophia lowered her eyelashes and said calmly, "He is not my boyfriend. He is not worthy of my love at all. The person I like is 1,000 times, 10,000 times better than him. It's a pity that I realized it too late." She became more and more sad as she spoke, and it was obvious that there was something behind her answer. The host became excited and wanted to dig out more revelations, but Sophia kept silent. David's eyes were reddened silently, and he looked like someone who was abandoned and had no words to express his pain. This time, David and Sophia's online reputation completely collapsed. You have no money but you still think about dating every day. What do you mean the one she likes is better? Is it an honor to be liked by her? Can I go to Tsinghua University or Peking University? What a scumbag! If she hadn't been flirting, how could anyone have misunderstood their relationship? Playing with ambiguity is a dirty trick. The national school beauty who was suppressed by her gambling father suddenly became a poor and arrogant idiot. It has to be said that netizens have discovered Sophia's true nature to some extent. I didn't expect Sophia to come to the James family company downstairs at such a critical moment. It was cold and windy, so she wore a thin coat and looked abnormally thin. I get goosebumps when I think of her saying during the live broadcast that she liked someone else. Sophia can really make people feel sick easily. She knelt down when she saw me. Fortunately, it was the night after overtime work, so there were not many people on the street. David, I'm sorry. I didn't see my heart clearly before. Now I understand that the person I love is you. Fortunately, it's not too late now. Can you give us another chance? The temperature dropped more and more, and snowflakes began to fall from the sky. I laughed sarcastically. David, are you referring to me as David? Sophia, why do you think that after you did something so outrageous, I will easily forgive you if you just say sorry? When you jumped off the cliff, did you ever think of giving Emily and me a chance? Sophia's eyes widened instantly, and she seemed to realize that I had also traveled back in time. She crawled closer on her knees. David, James, you're back too? What about Emily, how is she? I was wrong for not having time to celebrate her birthday. I'm her mother, she will definitely forgive me. Can I make it up to her? I clenched my fists and stared into her eyes. Thanks to your true love, Emily was thrown off a cliff by his instigated fans. Sophia felt as if she had been hit on the back of her head by a club. Her mind went blank for a moment, and she felt gloomy. She opened her mouth, but it seemed as if she had lost her voice, and she couldn't say a word. Sophia, I really regret letting you give birth to Emily. How many birthdays have you celebrated for her? How many times have you hugged her? Do you know how heartbroken I am every time she comes back from school and asks me why her mother never talks to her? I only hate myself for not protecting Emily and letting Emily have such a mother. Even if Sophia regretted it, I still didn't feel relieved because Emily would never come back. The little girl I raised and who would sweetly call me daddy, stayed at the bottom of the cliff forever. My tear glands were sore and my eyes were gradually covered with mist. Sophia, you deserve what you have now. What dream lover? It's your own obsession. Why should others bear the consequences for you? I have never forced you. If you are firm in your attitude, you can just not spend my money and not marry me. But you are not like that. You are greedy and are destined to have a bad ending. Sophia's defenses were broken instantly, tears kept falling, and her bony fingers hammered hard on the ground. It's me, it's my fault, I ruined our family. I looked at her with disgust and left in the car. There was no way to argue with such a shameless person. After I exposed her true face, she still used her family status to show her importance. In fact, it made no difference whether she was there or not. I am strong enough now. Sophia is just a pebble on the road of my life. Such a thing that hurts my feet will never appear in the garden that I have spent tens of millions of dollars to maintain. Sophia finally disappeared after that day. I focused on my studies and career, and both achieved good results. My father's health also improved a lot. He had nutritious meals and someone watched him eat on time. When he went for another physical examination, the doctor said he was recovering well. During this period, a project I participated in brought great benefits to a top domestic university. The school took the initiative to find me, offered me a place for admission, and hoped that I could participate in the tutors project in advance. After I told Mark to study hard, I went straight to college. Sophia and David completely disappeared from my life. The next time they appeared was during a live broadcast. Mark sent me a link and posted 5 exclamation points. In the live broadcast room, Sophia tied David to the cliff, looking insane, just like when she committed suicide. Both of them were quite popular online, and soon someone revealed their information. Sophia looked at the comments that were swiping the screen for a long time, and suddenly asked calmly, "Are you watching?" I frowned and moved away from the phone. Sophia continued, "I know you must be watching. I will prove to you that I really know I was wrong. I don't ask for your forgiveness, I just want everyone who has hurt you to pay the price." The barrage scrolled even faster. Oh my god, what's going on? The former rumored couple is now in love and hate with each other? The anchor is obviously mentally ill. This is very dangerous. Should we call the police? How horrible. It's really unlucky to be with a woman like this. It was obvious what Sophia was going to do. She probably wanted to throw David off the top of the mountain. I was probably the only one who knew where that was. I immediately called the police and dispatched a helicopter for bodyguards to rush over. Death is the easiest thing. Only when you are alive can you properly accept punishment and torture. David's mouth was taped shut and his hands and feet were tied. He struggled constantly, his eyes were red and he kept crying with fear. Sophia tore off the tape on his mouth, but without giving him a chance to speak, she dragged him to the edge of the cliff, half of his body falling out of the ground. David screamed in fear, his whole body stiff, not daring to move. Sophia slapped him with her other hand and said in a gloomy voice, "Apologize." David had no idea what she was talking about, but in order to save his life, he apologized frantically, hoping that this mental patient would see his sincerity and let him go. Sophia listened silently for a while, glanced at the live broadcast room which was still broadcasting normally, and let go with satisfaction. Ah! The live broadcast room also went crazy. They thought it was a show, but it turned out to be a crime scene. Sophia walked to the phone again, as if she could see me from thousands of kilometers away through it. "James, I avenged Emily, are you happy?" Before he finished speaking, the sound of a helicopter was heard from the sky. Sophia was a little flustered. She stared at the comments in the live broadcast room, trying to make out my answer. She waited for a long time, and when she almost couldn't hold on any longer, I replied with my own name, "Stupid B." She seemed to have not expected me to reply to this, and pursed her lips in embarrassment. But she was too late to reply, the police and bodyguards were about to arrive. She had to hurry and jump off the cliff. Amid the exclamations of the audience in the live broadcast room, Sophia leaped into the air and completely overlapped with her previous life. Unfortunately, she fell on the protective net halfway up the mountain and was seriously injured, but it was not untreatable. She was successfully rescued after being sent to the hospital, but she was paralyzed on one side of her body. After she recovered, she still had to face legal sanctions. After receiving the news, I put down my phone with satisfaction. After the tragedy, did you think I wouldn't take any precautions? I didn't flatten the mountain just to prevent Sophia from doing something weird again. David was thrown off a cliff and was saved by a safety net, but the fall also awakened him. Looking at his face scratched and disfigured by branches, he called the system's name every day, but the system seemed to have disappeared and never responded to him. Because it found me. Hello, host. After review by our system, you are more suitable for the character of the male protagonist of this world. As long as you bind with me, you can obtain props with extraordinary effects. I stopped what I was doing and asked it, is there anything that can bring the dead back to life? If not, forget it. It froze for a moment, as if it hadn't expected anyone to negotiate with it. The system searched the database for a long time and replied, no. Then there's nothing to discuss. The system wanted to say something when the surroundings went dark and it suddenly found itself locked up. I looked at the instrument in my hand with satisfaction. From the moment I discovered the system, I decided to completely eliminate this risk factor. Therefore, I started studying the system mentioned by David very early, and this was also the research topic in university. I had just finished capturing the instrument, but I didn't expect that this system would come to me directly. Next, we just need to send it to the laboratory and everything will be complete. The system sensed my intention and kept persuading me, host, don't you want to become more handsome and stronger? Don't you want to become rich overnight? Don't you want to have a wife who is fair-skinned, beautiful, and caring to you? As long as you cooperate with me, all of these can be achieved. I smiled faintly. I am the world's richest man. I don't care about being the male lead. I am my own absolute protagonist and don't need to rely on anyone. Everything finally settled down. From then on, my life was completely free of those people who made me unhappy.